accumulates. Like now you see me, but before that you don't know who am I. But then once you know, you can remember the accumulation from one moment to another moment.
That's what I was trying to explain, but he said no, accumulations has got to be the self. So then I thought, well, maybe he just doesn't want to understand, or maybe he can't understand.
If there is no accumulation at all, how can there be an idea or thinking about this and that? Because it's only seeing, that's all. It's not just seeing. After seeing, there's thinking about that which is seen, and it accumulates.
Well, I tried to point out that with understanding, if there's a moment of understanding, then that understanding, to eradicate the defilements, understanding has to grow. And so I was trying to explain to him that so when understanding arises, it grows a little and it accumulates.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not just understanding that accumulates, it's all Sankhara Dhammas, all Sankhara Khandas.
I realise that, but I was just trying to explain one aspect of...
Right. The thing is that it is the nature of Chitta to rise and fall.
Yes.
Nature of Cetasikas to rise and fall.
Yes.
But it's also the nature of certain Cetasikas to accumulate in nature. So that is not a contradiction. It's just saying that apart from the characteristic of rise and fall, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, there's also this thing about Cetasikas, that each time they arise, they accumulate in nature. So each time lopa arises, it accumulates in the Chitta. So that's the nature of the Chitta. And because it arises and falls away, it accumulates in the next one. So there's no self. And that next one also rises and falls away.
He was taking Chitta for self then. Was that what he was saying?
No. Not the Chitta for self, but the fact that things accumulate. The accumulations, yeah, it passes on. It doesn't, like, from life to life.
And so you can say the Buddha himself said, if it's self, then you can it's control.
Yeah.
So you can say, I don't want to accumulate, but you can't.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I thought of that afterwards.
And any word you'd like to discuss, Jack? Many words now, accumulation and Chitta.
Actually, I don't know what
Yeah.
Chitta is, so
Right.
I'll have to look it up later. But
No, we can tell you
So we have
now.
to begin with Chitta.
So, I think is Ajahn wants to, because you're here, we're here discussing the Dhamma in your house, and you're here listening. So we want to know whether there's anything that you heard that you find interesting and you'd like to know more about. And we've used a lot of words, and for example, accumulations and Chitta and all that, and wondering whether you're thinking to understand these words. Are you interested in understanding these words, what they mean? Because one of the things we get from listening to Dhamma and encouragement again and again by Ajahn is to not just listen without understanding. Each word needs to be understood. Otherwise, we just accumulate more ignorance about it. And with ignorance come attachment, and with that, sometimes wrong understanding. And that would be against the spirit of Dhamma, because Dhamma is the path of understanding and letting go and detachment. And the only way for that to happen is to understand and consider carefully each word. So Ajahn is trying to find out whether there is interest, you are interested in understanding. Is there anything you've heard so far and has aroused that interest, that kind of interest?
I understood that Jack said he was interested in understanding citta.
So you want to know what citta is? Yes. Citta is consciousness, and consciousness, an example of consciousness is the experience of seeing, hearing, thinking, tasting, smelling, touching. These are examples of citta, consciousness. And this, I think you agree, is what makes up our life from the moment we are born to the moment we die, moment we wake up to the moment we wake up the next day, because there's no time there when there's no citta, right? So knowing that, we're interested in knowing, in understanding citta, because that's what our life is. So that is what citta is. Seeing is citta. Seeing is the experience of that which is seen. Hearing is the experience of that which is heard, sound. This is the mental reality. And with citta arises other mental realities. For example, when there's thinking about different things, thinking about the table, glass of water, with, say, attachment. So that attachment is another mental reality, which is called cetasika. Citta is consciousness. Cetasika is mental factor. Huh?
What is consciousness?
If I may
Citta.
say,
Consciousness is citta.
if I may say too, Jack, mostly we think that citta is self. Our friend Sukhin has just said that, has been talking about citta, and we mostly think that we can describe it as that which knows, knows. And we often think, though, it's we who know, or I know, but it's the faculty of experiencing that knows. And Ajahn is always reminding us about what appears. She often talks about what appears now, which is the faculty of understanding, to know what appears. But we think that it's self that knows. And this is the big problem all the time, and that is underpinned by ignorance of the truth of what appears. Ajahn, what would you say if you were asked, what is citta?
I think I better talk of the word they know, like seeing instead of citta. So we're talking about whatever appears or are in this room. For example, is there seeing? Really?
So, from what I've heard, it sounds like there's an emphasis on the sensory, like what we're capable as living creatures, seeing, the tasting, the smelling, the feeling. So and then there was also the words about being the self. So is it an idea of self-awareness?
How come there be the idea of self when we are talking about just seeing? Seeing is seeing.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to understand it.
Okay.
But yeah,
right.
seeing is seeing.
There is seeing, but we have no idea or understanding the truth of it at all. That's why we just talk about the truth of whatever appears now as it is. For example, is there hearing?
Is there hearing?
Yeah.
I believe so.
So, can seeing hear?
Yes.
Seeing.
Can seeing hear? No.
No. So, seeing is not hearing?
No.
At all?
Not at all.
And what about thinking? Is it seeing or hearing or what? Thinking.
I think, to me, thinking is trying to process what you're seeing and hearing.
So thinking is not seeing, is not hearing.
Correct.
If there's no seeing at all, when one closes one's eyes, and then at moment of opening one's eyes, there is something is seen.
Yes.
Because seeing sees it. No one at all, no self, no idea about whatever, just arises to see, that's all. This is the reality or the nature of a reality which arises by conditions, falls away instantly, unknowingly, all the time. That's why there is no permanent self or thing at all. And can hearing arise without conditions, without ears, without sound? Impossible. So we begin to see that actually no one can condition hearing to arise. No one, so no self, to do anything. Realities are absolute realities. No one can make it arise or falling away at all. But there's no understanding of seeing in that which is seen enough. That's why there is the idea of I all the time at moment of seeing. When there's no seeing, there's no I see. When there's no hearing, there's no I hear. But when seeing is there, without understanding, there is the idea of I see instantly, like now. What is right and what is wrong. To take seeing for self, for me, is right, or seeing just arises and falls away by conditions before one can take it for anything at all. And this is what we learn to understand, the very temporary moment of life. Just life exists only in a moment, without a moment of experiencing its death. So we talk about that which arises from a moment of birth until the end of life, and then continue on again by conditions. There was seeing yesterday. It does mean that there will not be seeing today. But yesterday was yesterday, but there are conditions for today to see. No one can stop conditions for seeing to arise. So there is the idea of self taking everything in life which experiences for I. I feel, I like, I hear, and so on. And that which is seen belongs to me or someone or the world all the time. But actually there is no one at all. Can that be directly experienced? It's true, so true. Why not? When there's nothing at all, there cannot be any experiencing of nothing. But there is seeing right now, so real. And when there is the understanding of seeing, there is less attachment to seeing as I. And then seeing can appear as it is, arising and falling away. Learn to understand different moments as not self, as it is. No one knows. After seeing, there is thinking immediately. But there are other chittas, moments in between, unknown. That's why we learn before we can let go the idea of self, there must be the understanding, which understanding better and better. No more ignorance to take that for self. But there are many levels of understanding. Intellectual understanding is not the direct understanding, which understands moment of arising and falling away. And this is what this is the Buddha teachings, because he had experienced the truth. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the enlightened one. And he taught the others to understand until that can be conditioned for enlightenment for anyone. Is it possible to see the arising and falling of seeing right now? Possible. I don't mean now, but I mean possible. Is it possible? When it's true, it's possible. But it takes quite a long, long time for right understanding to understand better and better, more and more, until it's conditioned to just seeing, understanding immediately.
Check which gate is this of the university? Number 3, number someone is trying to find.
With 31 it is.
Yeah, so that is with 31. Let me just go. Ajahn,
I can seem to on my map.
No, she has a map in the iPad she can watch, but she didn't bring the iPad and her phone is... Huh? Laya. Yeah,
when she sees the Raya sign, just turn left.
เขาบอกเห็นรายาแล้วก็เลี้ยวซ้ายใช่แล้วก็จะมีประตูรั้วอันนึงเปิดไว้อยู่ประตูสีเขียวแล้วมันมีป้ายของ What's the hairdresser? Priya มันจะมีป้าย Priya hairdresser นะเข้ามาเลยมีที่จอดอยู่แล้วรั้วเขียวเปิดไว้อยู่ครับผมครับผมครับ Thank you.
And very simple question, but it's very difficult to understand what is seen now. See, very simple. What is seen? Just that. Difficult to answer. But just answer like usual, what is seen.
Like what you asked before, Jane, was a really good question, because it's always helpful to start at the beginning, and Ajahn is reminding us to start at the beginning. And she's asking us there the difference between, as I understand it, the difference between Nama and Rupa, because seeing is the experience of what is seen, another two realities that we are getting confused all the time or misunderstanding. And that's what's needed to understand in the beginning intellectually, to begin to develop understanding. So we need a good, like any art or skill, a good intellectual understanding of the art, so we can progress in that skill. And the skill of the Dhamma is takes time. And Ajahn is always reminding us of the incredible patience that's needed to understand the reality which appears, because it's not a person, and that's the difficult part. People are so often, we're so inclined to think in terms of people and things and places, whatever. It's all the time. It's a story that's self-perpetuating in a way. But that's not in accordance with Dhamma.
So the answer?
So the question is, what is seeing?
Right.
I guess I can...
No guess.
I understand seeing as two ideas.
No, I didn't ask that. I asked what it's seen.
Processing visual images. Visual input in a very basic level. Seeing.
No idea. So how come the idea?
Well, as I understand it, just that word, seeing, if you just saw me randomly on the street and you asked me, I would say it has two meanings to me. One is to visually, on a biological level,
I just asked
bringing in visual input. And then on the other level, it is understanding the images that are being processed.
Yeah, I just asked what is seen.
I would say the same, visual input, seeing things before you.
Is that thinking, or is that which is seen?
I don't think it's thinking. I think thinking can come into it later. But I believe on the very first bit of it is to just intake, input.
So you mean that which the blind cannot see? Now what is seen is that which the blind cannot see,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So what is that?
What is?
What is that which is seen? A reality, right? It's real.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Just
Visual reality?
Just that which can be seen.
Yes.
Can you see hardness?
I don't think so.
Can you see smell?
No.
So there is only one thing in the world or any world, that which can be seen is so real because it is seen. Does it arise?
Occurrence.
Does it occur or arise? That which is seen?
Yes.
Because it's seen. Right? Ka. Right?
Yes.
Does it fall away?
Far away.
Yeah, completely, never there again.
Falls away, okay. It can. No?
It arises and falls away instantly.
Yes.
Otherwise, there cannot be next moment which see again and remember again and match again different color as different feature, as different person or different things. So fast in life. We think of a moment, but there's so many things in a moment unknown.
It does seem like so many things are happening at the same time, right? You can see, you can hear, you can even there's an I who is sitting here and someone else sitting there, and all this seems to, like taking place at that one moment together,
Yes.
right? But that's because, but theoretically speaking, given that there is seeing and there's thinking about that which is seen, and there's hearing, there's thinking about that which is heard, if they all did arise together, it would be just a mess, wouldn't it? Right?
Yes.
So it's just one moment of experience followed by another. But it arises and falls away so fast. that it seems like it's all happening at the same time. So you can imagine how fast it is and how much of ignorance there is, because we have no idea. We take people and things for real, but that's because we don't understand that it's just many, many moments of experience, different moment of experience through the sense doors and mind doors that give the impression of seeing someone there and someone here talking. And that's a misunderstanding. You can appreciate that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It helps a little bit. It's, as you said, it's very confusing because so many things at the same,
and
seemingly at the same
time. Don't worry,
time.
it's not something we're supposed to be able to separate. We're supposed to understand. Beginning with intellectual understanding. You appreciate it at that level of intellectual understanding. Here, having heard about it, there's an agreement that this is how it must be.
Yes.
Right? That's how you start.
And so Ken, Jack just raised a really good point. This is not something that you do. This is it's the function of understanding to grow, to enable a better understanding of really what appears, to understand truly what appears. So it's a gradual process, and it is, after all, the most difficult subject. It's a subject which the Buddhas themselves, excuse me, teach. So it's not easy, but Ajahn is always reminding us the patience that's needed to gradually put away the ignorance that we have accumulated over millions of lifetimes.
So it's not just that we've accumulated a lot of ignorance and wrong understanding, attachment, that we end up taking people and things for real and being attached to this and that object. But it's also because of the nature of the chitta and cetasika is such that it rises and falls away in an instant, that and so many arising and falling away in any given moment, right? Means one moment is actually one, but what we call a moment conventionally is so many things has happened. So it's in the nature of chitta, consciousness and mental factors itself, that it rises and falls away, so that the impression of continuity is there. It just because that's the way the chitta is, it just gives that impression. That's why they say it's even more like a magician. A magician is, he does things you don't notice and suddenly he takes things out. That's because he's so fast and your mind is paying attention to something else. It's more than a magician's trick, that the chitta gives you that impression that there are people and things seems to be continuous and permanent and stable. But that's just an illusion. It's just the way the chitta is, but not in the reality of its nature itself. Because the reality of the nature of chitta is that it rises and falls away, never to come back. So all experiences, as even now, it's all gone, 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 gone. So the impression that things stay is a wrong impression, is wrong understanding. But if you begin to understand, you'll see that how it is wrong, and appreciate that you need to listen, continue listening, and so as to develop right understanding about the way things are.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a difficult thing to get my head around.
It is difficult.
Because, as you say, it's, it fools you into thinking there's a continuity. And so, even if you accept this, if you believe it, you accept it, it's hard to, I'm not sure, to kind of, do you have to kind of trick yourself into thinking like, okay,
that's what I said, you're not supposed to
this is the
try.
truth on one hand, but on the other hand,
you need to understand, and
it's
that
very
moment of understanding,
temporary.
like for example, I just said, there were moments of understanding, followed by moments of not understanding, and that's how it's supposed to be. It's a And if you have doubt, that's another reality to be known. If you have attachment to wanting to know more, that's just another reality to be known. Just understand that, as Sundar was saying, that it is understanding the function of this mental reality called wisdom, understanding, panya, that slowly gives rise to right knowledge more and more. So not that we don't understand now is just how it is. So no need to try to understand. It's just seeing the value of understanding and listening, keep on listening, seeing the value of the need to listen more and more and not try to get the results.
Wisdom is not something that you do. It's because we're so used to us doing things. We have the concept of me doing things. And it's the function of wisdom to understand. And Ajahn is always bringing us back to the present reality about what appears now. Learning to study that reality is the beginning of wisdom. But and we don't, and there won't be results seen immediately. But when we can see the truth of that, what appears now, when that is slowly studied, we begin to see that understanding can grow, because that's true. There is visual object appearing now. Seeing experiences what is seen. That's real. That is true. And that understanding intellectually enables understanding to grow.
And just consider this. Understanding, truly understanding that there is no understanding now is a level of understanding, right? So that understanding is very slight, but it is the right path. It is the beginning.
And now the next question. What is heard? Heard. Mm-hmm.
Common everyday experience.
I believe Ajahn was the answer to that is sound. What is heard is sound. Hearing is the experience of sound. And it's the same with the other realities. What is seen, or visual field, is experience. So seeing experiences what is seen. Hearing experiences what is heard. Tasting experiences what is tasted. And these might sound like pretty obvious in a way when they're explained, but the more we have that intellectual understanding, the correct intellectual understanding, that is the foundation for the beginning of the development of wisdom.
And I think the reason Achan asked you that question is because you just heard about seeing and what seeing experiences, visible object. Before hearing this, we all have the impression that we see people and things. When asked what is seen, you say, I see a chair, right? But now you come to realize that seeing does not see a chair, it just sees that which is seen. The chair is an idea which follows from the experience of seeing, right? There's thinking about many experiences. First, there's just a vague idea about something out there, and then the being able to distinguish that this is a chair. So it means there's a lot of seeing and a lot of thinking about that which is seen to give the impression of a chair out there, right? So just like we used to think that seeing sees a chair, a person, things, a house, a room, but in actuality it just experiences visible object. So with hearing, when Achan asks, so what is heard? Previously, we used to hear, we hear the fan, we hear a bell, we hear a voice, but in reality, is that what is heard? It was to ask, to find out whether you could, come to your own conclusion about that. So, as Sundar was saying, hearing actually does not hear bells and fan and air conditioning. Hearing just hears sound. It is the thinking which thinks, after many experiences, that it is the sound of this, sound of that. But the hearing itself does not hear bells or rings. Hearing just hears sound.
So that extra layer of thinking, I guess you would call it, is the one that labels and categorizes things. For example,
label.
Fan, voice.
Or even not
sound.
label, pre-labeling, which means that even an infant, a newborn baby thinks, but he's not learned what is what, so he cannot identify, but he still thinks. It's the nature of the mind to think about what has just been heard, what has just been seen. So in shape and form, even when it's just a blur, it's just long before you think, identify the object, the thinking process has already started. So it has to be like that.
I think I'm getting closer to what, understanding a little bit about what we're discussing, because it's very confusing to try to process it, but from what I can understand, these basic ideas of senses, like seeing, what is seeing? Seeing is just picking up visual input, and what is hearing? Hearing is just picking up audio input or sound. And then you stop there. You don't go any further to, well, I hear this, I hear that, I see the chair.
Yeah, there's no question of stopping. It's just a question of understanding how each reality is. What is the nature of each reality? That, for example, seeing is not hearing, hearing is not tasting, and tasting is not thinking. There's no idea about stopping there or anywhere, but there is that you begin to understand that you need to hear more and more about all realities, right? That not only you need to hear about seeing and visible object, hearing and sound, but you need to hear about thinking and concepts, because thinking thinks in terms of concepts. So we just need to hear a lot, because in the end, Dhamma, that's what Dhamma is about, our life from moment to moment.
From what I understood you saying there, Jack, I didn't hear you saying you were about stopping anything, but you were trying to more clearly delineate these different experiences, at least intellectually. Is that right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant by stopping, as far as, I guess, a definition for it, and talking about seeing, and it's just the intake of visual input, so to speak.
Yeah, you can say that. We and to know that that's thinking the way we're putting all this together now, but simply seeing is the experience of what is seen. Seeing is the experience of what is seen. And it's the same with the other realities. Hearing is the experience of what is heard. But they're very different. They're both very, very different. One experiences, the other one cannot experience. Sound, for example, cannot experience anything.
You agree with that? Sound cannot experience anything?
No, that's called, it's called, we call that rupa. I don't want to sound, no. Perhaps you can speak to that, Ajahn. If someone said to you, Ajahn, sound doesn't know anything, what do you say to that? Ajahn, if I said, sound doesn't know anything?
Really? Is it true? Is that true?
Yes, I think so. I agree.
How we construct the world. The Buddha was once asked that question. Ananda said, the world, what is the world? And it's by constructing these different experiences we come up with the idea of a world. But in reality, it is just the different experiences: seeing, which experiences visual object; sound, which experience, hearing, hearing, which experiences sound. And it's the same with all the senses. But seeing and hearing and thinking too are very predominant. Of course, there is sometimes tasting, smelling, and touching. But seeing and hearing are very strong a lot of the time, and this is how we're constructing our world, by these different experiences. Yes, of course, we have the other experiences too, and I suppose they're different for different people, and they arise in different ways. We're all, by conditions, different experiences arise.
But there is construction anyway. Even a blind, dumb and deaf person constructs his own ideas about what's around, right? So that's the nature of citta, that following every sense experience, you're thinking about what's been experienced and then proliferating into ideas about what might be there, what is there, and it's just that everyone is lost. We're all lost in the ocean of concepts, to say.
I'd like to add that these jittas arise and fall so fast. Like we were saying that when you ask the question, what is seen? Just visible object. But as soon as you open your eyes, you think you see people and things. And so, like, it's so fast that to say it's, visible object is just visible object. Well, it does feel like it's things that you see, and that's because citta arises and falls so quickly. The same with sound. As soon as there's a sound, you've identified it as something. But the missing element there to know these things as just a visible object is what we call understanding. And the reason why we listen, again, and it takes a long, long time to develop this understanding that knows visible object as just that. It's a visible object. There's no people in the visible object. There's nothing. There's no things. It's just, we often say it's just colour or just visible object. But then thinking follows ever so closely, very fast, and so we've labelled everything, visible object gets labelled, hearing, tastes. The missing element is understanding, which takes a long time to develop.
Like me. So is the self? Is there self?
Is there sound?
Self.
Self. That's a great question. Is there self? This is a difficult one. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, to be honest.
Or if I say, in reality, is there Jack?
Well, I don't know what reality is. That's the difficult part for me.
Is it Jack who sees and hears and thinks? Is it Yoda who sees, hears, and thinks?
I want to say yes, because if you ask Jack what he's looking at now and you ask Iola what she's looking at now, we might get two different opinions, two different perspectives. And so that kind of indicates to me, oh, there are these two separate Jack and Iola looking at the same object.
And it could never be the same object, really. Even conventionally, you can see that, right? I mean, you're sitting there and she's sitting down there, you could never see the same object.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And that's because you happen to be there and she happens to be here.
Yes.
And that also shows that a certain, a visible object strikes her eye and another visible object strikes your eye.
Right.
And without that striking, there wouldn't be seeing for either of you. Right?
Yes.
A visible object didn't strike the eye, there wouldn't be seeing. So, given that this is the mechanism that a visible object strikes the eye and there's seeing, wherefore the idea of Jack who makes that seeing happen or is seeing.
So does that mean that Jack that is seeing from this angle is a self?
If you have that idea that there is a Jack who is seeing, rather than have the understanding that seeing just arose by conditions which include the visible object striking the eye, then you have a wrong understanding. Because in reality, that's what just happened. Visible objects strike the eye, followed by thinking about what is seen. And each and every time you have the intention to turn, it's not you who intends, just mental realities doing their functions, intending to, thinking, intending to do this, intending to do, just mental factors rolling on.
So then, given that, I would say there is no self then, along those ideas.
Right. So if that's the way things are, then there's no place for self, right?
Yes.
And of course, Jack, it's we do have the conceptual framework so we can communicate and share ideas. It's because of concepts that we are able to talk about the Dhamma. You know, the Buddha used concepts. He used the word I and me and mine, and he could recognize and call by name his different disciples. So we need this conceptual world. It's vital. But it's important to realize, and Ajahn has pointed this out to me, and I remember finding it very helpful, that it's because of the real world, what's called the world of Paramatta Dhammas, or the ultimate world, or the real world, truly real world, that we have any idea of this conceptual world. Like when we talk about people and things and rooms and places, we can only do that because there's an absolute world, so to speak, behind it, or appearing now. So it's beginning intellectually to tease apart these ideas we have, which are concepts, which are based upon the real world. But it's the real world that we're mostly totally ignorant about, and we have completely overlooked. And it's the Buddha who pointed this out in many different ways, that we need to understand that world, not this conceptual world, because we understand that well enough. It's the other world we don't know anything about. The world that
The real world.
the world that appears now by way of the senses, that enables us to construct the world that appears now, that Sukin was speaking about a moment ago about the mirage or the trickery or the magician. So we're really here to understand what are the magician's tricks in a way, so that we can begin to understand what really is happening, so that we can become ultimately the magicians, if you like, who understand what really is going on.
It's very difficult because, as you say, we need this conceptual world so that we could even discuss even the beginnings of the ideas of the real world. Without this world, we're not able to discuss this idea. So it's kind of like the two cannot be separated at all. We have to be in this world to discuss the other world.
Right. For Dhamma, you need to hear certain words, and right. But it's not so much that it has to be like that. It is like that. It is in the nature of the citta that it thinks after the experience of sense objects, thinks. And thinks even when there's no sense objects, as in dream. Right? During deep sleep, suddenly you dream. So it's in the nature of citta to do that. And even if you don't have the words to communicate, it still thinks. So it's not so much that you need, is that this is how it is. What is needed is to understand that this is how it is. So there's no problem about thinking. Thinking is never the problem. The problem is the ignorance. I mean, even to just turn your attention, that is also thinking. Because without thinking, you wouldn't turn. Move a finger is thinking. So not just words. It's just to live, to function, you need thinking.
Does a cat think? A cat, a dog?
I think, does a cat or a dog think? I think the cat just does cat. Just a cat is just a catting. A cat is cats. A bird is birds. But it does appear to think sometimes. Like.
Does it see?
Does it see? Yes.
So is it the cat, the bird, which sees, or seeing is seeing?
Seeing is seeing.
So can seeing be a cat?
No.
Can seeing be self?
No.
Not at all.
When the cat decides to move to an object, that's not the function of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, right? It's the function of thinking. So it thinks. It has to think.
Does a cat like? Like.
Like?
Does it like?
Yes.
So it's like real?
It's like real.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
liking.
Yes.
Is it bird, cat, eye? To like or to be to attached?
Yes. They can be attached.
So attachment is not a bird.
Attachment. I think everything can, any living creature can have attachment.
I mean, attachment cannot be a dog or a cat.
No.
It is attachment itself.
Attachment is itself.
So it's a reality, not
Yes.
anyone at all. Does it arise?
Does it arise? Yes.
Does it fall away?
Yes.
Not permanent at all.
No.
What is permanent?
Nothing?
Nothing at all. Whatever arises has to fall away
Yes.
instantly, unknowingly, all the time. So there's no self, there are different absolute realities. Like hatred is hatred, attachment is attachment, seeing is seeing. So no one there. From birth to death, each moment. Is today different from yesterday?
Yes.
And tomorrow will be different from today.
Yes.
Yeah. Nothing can stay permanently. So what was born? What is born, or what was born?
What was born?
Was it Jack
Or something else? That's the question.
The same, but we have no idea about realities as they are at all. That now, without realities, there's no one, nothing at all. If nothing arises, how can there be a world? No world. But when there's nothing arising, no world, nothing at all. But once a thing or a reality arises, the world is there. But there are conditions for many, many things to arise now. So it seems like the world is full of many things. But actually, there is only one moment of experiencing. There can never be two moments together because of conditions. Which condition a moment of experiencing?
But there are so many of those very short, fast moments that it makes us believe there are these, I think before somebody said continuity, these things that...
Because it's not known. So one takes it for a permanent thing, like I, or whatever.
And that's just through thinking about different possibilities and different aspects of things. There'll always be these different ideas and different concepts, but there can be the understanding little by little that understands what appears, be it thinking, be it the experience of visual object, be it the experience of sound. We can think and we think, oh, it seems so difficult, that's all just thinking. And Ajahn was reminding us the other week that there is the reality that appears. And instead of sometimes, although we can't change that, when it happens, that there is a reality which appears now. It may be the experience of sound, it may be the experience of visual object. And little by little, instead of thinking, oh, this is so difficult, that's just thinking. And that can enable a moment of understanding, and those moments, or that understanding, grows little by little. But in the beginning, it is very important to consider carefully and to be honest, to be sincere, I'm using Ajahn's word here, and to be careful about how we interpret the Buddha's teachings, because I think they can be very easily misinterpreted and misunderstood.
That impression that it's difficult, can also come from some level of understanding how deep and difficult the Dhamma is. So, yeah, understanding can arise anytime, but because there's so much attachment and ignorance, and attachment attaches to anything, not just to the sense objects, there's attachment to thinking too. That even when we're thinking now about the Dhamma, that is difficult or not difficult, it's thinking with attachment. It happens a lot. So it's not something that we should not expect. It's to be expected that even attachment to Dhamma is bound to arise.
What are they now? What are they now? Now?
Now?
What are they?
In this room? Or what I see?
Anything? Anywhere? What are they?
I don't know. I'm trying to think and
Yeah.
about what I've heard so
Okay,
far.
now. What are they? Just now.
I don't know what there is now.
Know you?
There are people in this room.
Okay, there are
Yeah.
people in this room. Why do you say that there are people in this room?
That's what I see.
Okay, that's what you see.
Yes.
But without thinking, can you see people?
No.
So what is seen is just a moment of experiencing that which can be seen. Only one reality in the world, or what the truth. There are so many truth, many reality which is true, but one thing that can be seen only is that which now is seen. Can you see attachment?
No.
Can you touch it?
No.
Okay. So, can we say that there are all reality is no one at all? Whatever is now is a reality, no self, no one. But they are quite different from one another,
Yes.
right? So, that which is real but cannot be touched, cannot be seen. Okay, let me say another thing. That which cannot see but can be touched is real now. And what is that? That which can be seen but not can be touched is moment of seeing and that which is seen. And at moment of hearing, that which hears and that which can be heard but cannot be touched. Different reality. So what is touched? What is that which is touched?
That which can be touched but not seen.
Not can be seen.
What can be seen?
What can be touched but
can be
not can
touched?
be seen?
What can be touched but not can be seen? Is that what you're asking? What can be touched but not can be seen?
In a dark room, completely dark.
Yeah.
It's trying to point out the different realities that are experienced, because we can't touch what we see. We think we can, and conventionally speaking, you kind of can, but Ajahn is pointing out to you that there are in reality just different experiences, like when there is the experience of tangible object by way of body sense. That's different from the experience of what is seen. So touching, if you like, is different from seeing.
Right, okay.
So it's little by little separating the different experiences in life. So you can't touch sound. It's beginning to have a clear understanding of what reality is. And that's that reality behind, if you like, which enables the conceptual framework that we have of our world, which is an important one and an essential one, but it's not the real one.
I take it that the idea is to try to separate these different experiences or realities, because it's overwhelming, as you know, our conceptual world, so to speak. We take it all in at once, and so that helps with the confusion because it's so noisy, it's so visually overpowering, and so there's like sensory overload, so it's hard for...
Well, it's not, that's all thinking.
Uh-huh.
That's just all thinking.
There's no problem.
And
any of these experiences, except that it's in the nature to fall away immediately, and therefore it's suffering, it's dukkha. But it's for each experience. It's not that and they are overwhelming because they arise and fall away together, or it seems together. The problem is that there's just ignorance. So even for a Buddha, it's the same thing. Different doorways, sense doors and mind door alternating, and this is what life. He'll see table. He'll think about table and chairs and see it's like you and me, and he'll get up to go to the bathroom like you and me. So the only difference is that he understands everything clearly as they are, and that's the purpose of identifying these different doorways, because that's how you also develop understanding about each one. But it's not that they stop somehow after understanding. It's just going the way it is. But the understanding itself, which goes against the opposite of ignorance, and the ignorance which brings with it attachment and aversion and all these unwholesome realities, that is the problem with us. Those are the realities with that are a problem with us. But in fact, in reality, even those rise and fall away one at a time. So when wisdom rises, even those are not a problem in that sense, right? So nobody's trying to change anything, just to understand slowly, gradually, little by little, that this is the way things are.
So we don't have to try to separate anything. We don't have to try to separate anything. That's just thinking, usually with ignorance. There can be an understanding of what appears as just visual object or just sound, or just, as Ajahn was talking about before, what is experienced by way of body sense. So there doesn't have to be this idea of trying to separate. It's just somebody trying to do something, which has never happened before anyway, so it's impossible. That's never happened. A person who's been able to separate things. It may seem like that, but that just, trying to separate is will get in the way of developing understanding.
Although when understanding does arise and gets developed, it does see one distinguished from the other. So in that sense, it's separating in the sense that it knows one reality from another. It can distinguish.
Yeah, I guess that's what I meant when in my mind, when I was thinking about using that word separating, I guess distinguishing of it, since especially the questions, that's what it seems like. So I'm trying to make that more clear in my mind.
But in the end, it's wisdom which will do the separating. It's not us. So the more there is the correct understanding in place, like it's important to understand the different realities. There are the different realities that are appearing. However, it's not something that we do. And perhaps what I've found with many people in the beginning is having a clear understanding about what is real and what is not real. Like we've talked, we use the conceptual framework of people and things, yes, and they are conventionally true, but it's understanding that which enables those concepts. And that's not something that we have ever heard before. We've never heard about that reality that is experienced, which is apart from the conceptual world. Because ultimately, what we think about is not real. And Ajahn was sort of alluding to that a moment ago when you said, can you touch what you see? Because thinking is real, but the objects of thinking are not real. I don't want to make it complicated, but that's not an easy thing to grapple with intellectually, in a way. Thinking is real, but what we think about is not real.
As we were talking earlier about the idea of Jack sitting here and Yoda sitting there, it's just thinking, right? So that's what is meant by the thinking. The thinking thinks that. The thinking itself is real, but Jack is not, right? Jack is just an idea that follows from different experiences to the sense doors. So the thinking is real and the concepts are not real. That's what is meant.
Can you touch Lola? So what do you experience when you touch Lola? What happens? What is the experience?
I'm happy.
That's real.
That's real.
Yeah. He's asking only when it's touched during the touch.
Just physical sensation, so that's maybe,
yes, that's
pleasant or sense memory, maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but
there is.
I feel
pleasant feeling.
Pleasant feeling because there's an emotional attachment to it, but also on the basic level, feel body heat, feel texture from the clothing that she's wearing.
Yeah, that's all thinking too.
Sure.
Yeah, but perhaps just take the moment of touching is the experience of what can appear through a way of our body sense, different degrees of temperature,
yes,
hardness or softness going right through. So you've got temperature, different degrees. You've got different degrees of
texture,
pressure. Yeah, we can say
pressure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Sure.
It's more. Yeah, we usually say pressure. You're right, pressure or texture. Be another word for that word, but usually they're those three things:
Not texture, I would say texture. See, texture is an idea. I mean, to come to a conclusion that it's a particular texture is actually many experiences. At the moment of touching itself, what is ever experienced is either heat, cold, that temperature, hardness, softness, that's the earth element, or motion, pressure. Motion or pressure. Like if you touch a balloon, you see there's motion, pressure, right? That's the only three basic objects of touch. The rest, the idea of something is out there, touching Iola, touching texture, is just thinking, right? Touching cloth is just thinking. So that was the question. When you touch who we call Iola, at the moment of touch itself, what is touched?
Just the experiencing of those three categories you just mentioned?
Yeah, either one. And it can be only one at a time.
Sure. Makes sense.
I mean, it can follow something soft and cold or soft and hard, but that's because there are many moments.
Quick
right,
moments,
yeah.
yes.
And what touch?
What is touch?
At moment of
What touches? Oh boy.
Does the hand touch?
Yeah, I would say my first reaction would be my fingers, the hand, but then
It gets back to that very first question that we talked about today. What is chitta?
well, I heard it was defined as consciousness, but I'm still trying to, again, understand it, the concept or the idea.
Well, chitta is that which experiences. It is that which experiences. So Ajahn was reminding us in a way again that it's chitta that experiences the reality by way of body sense. So as Ken pointed out, it might be degrees of hardness or softness, and those other two. So getting back to Ajahn's question, so what touches?
So it's, the answer is chitta.
Chitta.
Chitta touches, not Jack touches.
Well, chitta experiences, yeah.
So then this goes back to maybe a question from before about, is there a self? So is there a Jack that possesses a chitta that is different than Iola's chitta, or is a chitta this sort of universal, for lack of a better word, concept that is around and we are all part of this chitta that experiences?
Does it feel like that?
It doesn't feel like that. It feels we're very separated.
And it's interesting what you said before then about chitta. Chitta, yes, is a concept, but it's a reality. Chitta is the reality which experiences. So when we have all these different, and there are lots of stories that can go along with that, but at that moment of touching, chitta experiences by way of body sense different degrees of hardness or softness, different degrees of temperature, and different degrees of motion or pressure. That's all. And then there will be many other moments about thinking about, we have different stories that come about through that experience. So, can you touch Lola?
Maybe not. Maybe never. Maybe it was just chitta experiencing the touch.
That's right. That's chitta experiences a tangible object. And then there are many other experiences of thinking, pleasant sensations or not, etc., etc., etc. That's our world that we are continually constructing.
But what is the idea, or what is, if you can help clarify the idea of, I understand chitta is the experiencing.
Chitta experiences.
Chitta experiences. But it seems like my going into a corner here, but my chitta is different than her chitta,
Of
than
course.
different your chitta.
Of course, yes, of
But
course.
then does that mean
When we have these different stories, Iola will have her own experiences, like Sukin and Ajahn will have her own experiences. That's chitta and the many different factors that go along with that. We won't go there at the moment, but you've got chitta, which is so important because that's the fundamental driver in the sense of experience. The leader, well said, yeah, it's the leader in experiencing. And there are different kind of family members, if you like, but we'll leave those for the time being. So seeing is the experience of what is seen. Hearing is the experience of what is heard. Touching is the experience of what is touched, and so on. And these are the fundamental, this is the fundamental framework of the Dhamma. And through that fundamental framework, we build up an understanding which can grow little by little. But it's important, vitally important, that we get this framework correct, because if we don't, then we go astray and thinking into different paths that are not helpful. So yes, Lola's experience will be different for yours, conventionally speaking.
No, I think Jay's question is, how do we know that there are other chittas, right? I mean, we can only ever experience what's experienced in our consciousness through the five senses in the mind, one at a time. So the object of understanding can only be these, what's appearing to each person separately. But I think it's a fair conclusion that there are other people out there, since when you hear someone else, what we call, when you hear that person speaking, you can understand that like when you speak, it's chitta that conditions the verbal, so there must be. But it's a fair conclusion, although you cannot experience them directly. So I think you're not wrong to conclude that there are other people.
It's mostly inferential, you know, like, yes, but, and sometimes, like, I'm smiling because sometimes we have these stories, is there really a world, or is there really people out there? But that's not helpful, and that's thinking, and we can go down all sorts of pathways which are not particularly helpful. We can think, oh, you know, do birds really fly? But that's not helpful.
It's like contradicting yourself when you say that, is there someone else? Is there other? Because at that moment you're actually thinking that you're the only one. So if there's a you, that's already wrong. And that you start doubting, it's just you who is doubting. It's just that. So if there is this chitta that conditions from moment to moment different outward body behavior, what you see, what you hear, when you hear other people, you see other people talking, walking, it's fair to conclude that there are other chittas doing their functions, similar to what's happening here.
So chitta is the starting point, the faculty of experiencing that which appears. We can have all sorts of stories about all sorts of other concepts, and usually they're mostly not helpful. You know, we might be interested in politics, for example, but it's just an endless story, and it's what, you know, we just go on and on and on. It's never ending, and mostly it's what we call in the Buddhist teachings akusala. It's not helpful, it's not skillful, and it leads to more problems in life. The Dhamma, as we're discussing it today, leads to less problems in life, and we all want less problems in life. But we go about getting the solutions mostly in the wrong way. We all want to be happy. So how do you be happy? It's by learning to understand what appears. That's the beginning. It won't happen overnight. Like wisdom doesn't blossom overnight, but it's a little by little process, and it's beginning to understand. And when we begin to understand, there is a developing of what is kusala as opposed to what is akusala. And this level of understanding is the highest kusala, or the highest tribute in a way that you can pay to the Buddha, by learning to understand, which leads to detachment or a letting go, a gradual letting go of what appears, because there is a learning that what appears is not permanent. It can't bring happiness. But we are often investing so much in what can't bring happiness. And that's what essentially the Buddha's teachings enables us to gradually, very gradually, let go from these experiences, because wisdom enables us to realize, or enables the realization that it's not worth hanging on to really, or attaching to, because it's impermanent. And through the teachings we can gradually understand that, but it does take a great deal of patience and questioning in a way about, okay, so what appears now? What really appears? So we've talked about a little this morning, we've talked about seeing and what seeing experiences, hearing and what sound experiences, and getting back to Ajahn's question, which is a good one, because she asked, can you touch the table? Can you touch the table? And we've talked about no. There is the experience of hardness by way of body sense. Chitta experiences hardness or softness, or degrees of temperature or degrees of pressure, shall we say. So gradually we are learning to tease, in a way, apart the different realities which seem so glued together, which are not really glued together. And that's how we build up this conceptual framework, which can be, most people have, which is very wrong, of the world. Things are not just one conglomerate, they're not just one packed and whole. And it's through the Dhamma that wisdom enables an understanding of what truly appears, and that leads to more detachment and more letting go. So everything is connected in a way with the Dhamma, and you'll find that whenever you look in any sutta, this is the fundamental driver. The Buddha has been asked many times. The teaching has the flavour of release, has the flavour of salvation, or has the flavour of letting go, detachment, learning to let go. And when there is development of what appears, there is a learning to let go, developing, little by little. But it won't happen tomorrow. But this is partly what confidence or saddha is about, because we know that seeing is the experience of what is seen. That is a type of confidence in the teachings, when we accept that, because it's real, it's true. That's true.
Can the book touch Kun Iola? Put it on her. Can it touch her?
Now I would say no.
Why not?
Good question.
Very good question.
Yeah. Because she's just a concept, just an idea.
Ajahn is trying to help you understand. It's a very, very good question. Yeah. Why not?
Because I'm just simply feeling body temperature and pressure. I'm not experiencing, I'm not touching Iola, whatever Iola is. I'm just touching temperature, or I'm only experiencing temperature and pressure.
I am touching. I am touching.
Yes. Ajahn, you ask in the book?
Yes.
Yes. The point is, because normally, without hearing the Buddha's teaching, we say, oh, the hand is touching the chair, right? Or two chairs are touching each other, right? But that's not what touch, as you just heard that we talk about, is. What is touching? So can a book touch? Can a book touch, as in what you've heard?
No.
No, because?
It's the experiencing.
Yes, touching is a kind of experience. So that's the distinction Ajahn was.
Wait, so can I touch you?
Can
You can speak conventionally.
Not I. What is Jack is teaching? What touches? All right. Just the experience.
can two
What,
Can
do,
two-
what does a human have, or an animal that the book does not, or the chair does not?
The sense, the experience.
Chitta.
Yeah, the chitta, yes. The experience.
can chairs touch each other?
No, because they cannot. They don't have a sense of the experience.
Why not?
That's what he just said.
Because they're not living creatures.
Yes.
Inanimate objects.
Because we talked about before that there are two realities. There is the reality which knows, chitta, or the reality which experiences. Like, so, when we're speaking about chairs, it's just, they are rupa. They cannot know anything. A chair or rupa does not know anything. I'm realizing that I'm not being very precise there, but there's no consciousness there. That's right. There's no chitta. Chittas do not know that they're being. Rupa does not know that it's being touched. So these are the fundamental building blocks of the Buddha's teachings. What's called nama, or that which experiences. Or excuse me, I've confused you there. My apologies. Chitta is that which experiences, and what it does experience is rupa. Sometimes there is thinking about different concepts, but in this particular case, we're talking about the reality which experiences visual field, for example, like right now. Seeing experiences the visual field, or rupa, which does not know anything. It does not know that it's being seen. So these are the building blocks of the Buddha's teachings. There is a reality which experiences, and there is a reality which is experienced, which is the visual realm. And they're very, very different.
Sundar, it's not just saying that there's one reality experience, which experiences, and the other reality which is experienced. We have to make the distinction that also that which does not experience anything, because sometimes nama is also experienced, feelings are experienced, right?
I did say that.
No, I thought you said to make the distinction between, in terms of what's nama and rupa, in the sense that nama is which experiences and rupa which is experienced. But that's not enough, because to distinguish rupa from nama is also the fact that rupa does not experience anything. So that's a better distinction. Nama is something that which experiences, and rupa is that which does not experience anything. Because the rupa that is not being experienced is still rupa, right?
So what are there here in this room? Yeah.
So in this room are things that can be experienced on
the reality which can experience and the reality which cannot experience, right?
Yes.
What can experience?
What can be experienced?
What can experience?
What can we experience? We can experience seeing.
Right. Seeing can experience visible object. Hearing can experience sound. So that which can experience is different from that which cannot experience.
Yes.
No matter in what world, there are only two different kinds of realities. One can experience and the other cannot experience. We don't have to use any name, but when we understand, we can use one word for that which cannot experience. Rupa, new word. Whatever cannot experience, but it arises as it is. Sound, smell, taste, cannot experience. So instead of saying about different words, we just say rupa, any rupa. Whatever that cannot experience is arupa, right? And that which can experience, we don't have to use any word, because its nature is it can, it has to. Whenever it arises, it must experience. And that is now seeing. So seeing is a reality. It experiences no one at all. So can visible object appear without being seen? Never. So what sees now is seeing, not I. Only the seeing sees. Another word for anything which can experience is nama. So we have two different words. One is rupa, that which cannot experience. It's real, it arises by conditions, but it cannot experience anything at all. And that which arises is conditioned. Whenever it arises, it experience, it must experience. But it doesn't have shape, no form at all. But it's that just arise. So no one can touch seeing, but can understand that that which sees now is real. It's a reality. It's conditioned. Whatever arises needs the proper conditions for its arising, like seeing. Without the eye, that which can, that which now see, contact or impinge on it, is there, no one see it. What is seen is only that which can be seen. We can simply say color, different colors. That's why the eye cannot be seen, the ear cannot be seen, the ear sense, the eye sense, the special rupa, which the object can impinge on, like eye base is that which the rupa, the visible object now, impinges on it, and conditioned seeing to arise and see. So how many realities at moment of seeing?
How many realities at
Yes.
the moment?
Uh-huh.
I think just one at each moment.
What is it? There must be visible object. There must be the eye base, conditions for seeing, and seeing that which experience, that which sees. Different ones arising. What arises before seeing?
What arises before seeing?
Before moment of seeing, which condition seeing to
Oh,
arise?
the condition to see
Right.
must arise before the seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What?
What is it?
Mm-hmm.
You mean like you must have eyes and
The eye base arise before,
yes.
and the object which is seen arise before, and the object which is seen impinge on the eye base. So it conditioned like the fire, seeing arise.
So that all must occur. All those conditions must be in place before the actual
rupa.
experience.
Right. Because it has to impinge on the eye base, ear base, before hearing arises. So no one can do anything. All conditioned by different conditions.
So no one can do anything. So I cannot say
actually-
I see. It's not me. It's the conditions that
Because
grant me the seeing.
if there is no seeing, can you say I see?
No.
But when seeing arises, you take seeing for I.
Yes.
So we take everything which appears without understanding as I.
So we're taking credit for
And
the conditions that are happening.
this is what is meant by enlightenment of the Buddha. To experience directly the truth of all realities as they are. As not self, no one at all. From birth to death, just one moment. So life exists only in a moment. Only a moment.
Chan, when you say impinge,
Or
what do you mean?
whatever.
Phasa?
Not yet, just phasa must be cetasika.
Yes.
So this is krathop,
Oh,
touch,
okay.
yeah, or impinge on.
And so kathop, we know that only visible object can kathop pasada,
Jakku
jakku
pasada
pasada.
only.
And what about conventionally, like when the microphone is touching the table, can we say something is kathop,
No,
something else?
because no pasada.
No, no pasada, but so it does not kathop. We cannot say kathop.
Conventionally, we can say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because the kalapas has space also, and no, yeah, that's right. Okay, when we say kathop, we mean a rupa impinging on
Eye base or
on
ear base.
a pasada rupa.
Pasada.
Okay.
So now you can know or say what is rupa and what is nama.
As I understand it, rupa is that cannot experience, and nama is the that
Whatever.
can experience.
The moment of experiencing.
Moment of experiencing. Thank you.
Is the experiencing real?
Is the experiencing real? I believe so.
You believe? You understand?
I don't understand, obviously. Is the experiencing real?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps
is.
not.
Is
Well-
there, well, is there seeing now?
Is the
Is there seeing now?
Is there seeing now?
So it's not real or it's real? Is seeing real?
Is real.
So it's not just because you believe, but the truth of it. It's the moment of experiencing and no one there at all.
So you said the truth of it is the moment of experiencing.
Right.
Okay.
No one. And from now on, you understand what is Nama and what is Rupa, right?
Yes.
Okay. So please tell more about Nama and Rupa.
I think I'm beginning to understand these two, but I don't know that I understand it well enough to explain.
As much as you can.
So Rupa is that which is not, cannot experience. So for
What
example,
are they?
Conventionally we say inanimate objects.
An
things
absolute reality, not conventionally.
Oh,
What is that?
chair.
Chair is convention.
Oh, so this
Yes.
this thing that we believe,
No,
That
the
we-
truth, not you believe. No
this
matter you
thing
think.
that we call a chair.
No.
No?
What is touched?
Ah,
Yeah. What is touched? No matter when and where.
touch anywhere is
Yeah.
the experience of touching.
What is touched?
What is touched is,
Is it a reality?
it is
What reality is it?
the sensation of temperature or pressure.
That is thinking much about it.
Oh.
Touch it again. What is touched? What the experiences at moment of touching.
That experience?
It experiences what at moment of touching?
It experiences feeling,
No,
sensation?
no.
No.
Touch again and again and again. It's true. The truth, no one can say, not true. What is the truth at moment of touching?
That something is experienced here?
What is something?
This chair?
That is convention.
Is.
I mean, just as seeing, we agree that whatever is seen as visible object does not see tables, chairs, people. What is seen is visible object. Hearing hears sound. So touching, and we agree that touching is also a kind of consciousness which experiences an object.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying it's the touching that's experiencing.
Yeah, touching what?
Experiences what?
Touching.
Touching. Touches what?
Touching touches this.
What is this?
Can I see this? You're pointing it out to me. Can I see that
Yes.
that thing that you're touching?
You can see it.
I can see that touch.
Oh no, you cannot
right.
see the touch.
I cannot see because seeing ever sees visible object. Right?
So, yes.
So when you're pointing out this to me, what am I supposed to know? What am I supposed to think about? Touching sees this. Touching touches this, you're saying.
I'm lost.
No, but touching is something that really happened at that time, and
Yes.
and it's experiencing something. What is that?
The experience of me touching this.
No, the touch itself. We
The
agree
touch
that.
itself.
What is it experiencing?
Just the experience of coming into contact with this.
What is it?
What is this?
What is it? Not the what. What is that? What is it that is touching?
That it's touched.
What is touch?
What is that
Just-
which is touched?
Chair?
No. Close your eyes.
What am I touching? What am I
Close.
touching behind?
The chair behind you?
No.
Close
Oh,
your
your back.
eyes. Close your eyes
Okay.
and touch. You touch what?
This chair.
No, you think about it.
I'm touching this thing.
What thing?
This object, physical
What-
object?
You call it physical, but it has its own characteristic.
It has its own
Characteristic.
characteristic, yes.
So what characteristic is touched?
This metal, this coolness that I feel.
Coolness
Coolness.
is real only when it is touched.
I see.
Can it be heat?
It could be, but now it is not.
Can it be hardness?
Yes.
So it's not a chair which is touched at all.
Mm.
This is the absolute truth. To understand that actually there is no self, no conventional thing. It's only the idea after seeing and hearing.
Okay.
And this is the absolute truth. In order to understand more and more that actually there's no one, no self, no thing at all. There are only absolute realities, which are two kinds, that which cannot experience hardness, sound, smell, taste. They cannot experience anything. Whenever it arises, it's sweet or salty, but they cannot experience anything. But that which experience is not a bird, a human being, or who, but it's that moment of experiencing, arising by conditions, and fall away instantly, never to arise again.
And that's why you said life is just a moment.
Right. No one there, only different absolute realities. If there is no understanding about the absolute truth, there must be the idea of I and everything, conventional term. And this is what the Buddha enlightened, and much more than this. He taught for 45 years about everything, to condition understanding, to really letting go the idea of self, because it's so very deeply rooted from years and years ago, not only in this life. Quite new, different world, the world of conventional thing and the world of the absolute truth. Nothing, if nothing arises by conditions. After it has arisen, it falls away instantly, no more. So it's a world of nothing. Just appear and disappear so rapidly, unbelievable. Is this true?
You're asking me?
Yes. Is it true?
Is it true?
Yeah, it's true. Forever. No matter at what time, wherever. So what is the moon? What is the nature of what we call the moon?
What is the nature of what we call the moon?
There is a moon. So what is it? What is the nature of it?
It's just something that we experience.
No we, no
something
I.
that's experienced by sight, by seeing.
So seeing, see what?
seeing. Where?
See what? We have to go around again and again and
Yes.
again. Yeah.
You need to continue hearing. Yes. Everybody, yes, please.
And I think I really appreciating your sincerity, and it's not easy, but Ajahn is reminding us all, via you in a way, that about the different realities that continually appear that we mistake for different things. And so she's asking, Ajahn is asking again, so what is seen when we see the moon or whatever? What is seen is just that which is seen. And the same with the other senses. What is hearing? What does hearing experience? And so on, and touching. What does touching experience? Like Ajahn was asking about the chair before. Different degrees of hardness or whatever. And so there needs to be an attending to these realities as they appear, because we've got into the deep habit of this conceptual world, which is helpful to a point, but it's not real, and it leads to more unhappiness.
Can you please explain what you mean by that? What is that?
Sure, Christian.
No, you were just saying that. I think what I heard was that was thinking about the conventional world is helpful to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to know helpful in which way?
I don't know if you really heard what I was saying, Sukhin, but anyway, I was saying, it's not clear to me now, but the conventional world leads to more sorrow, usually. So Ajahn is reminding us about the reality which appears, which we keep confusing, where we think in this conventional way, like Ajahn used the word moon, the moon. The moon's a story in a way, it's a concept. And the way she talked a moment ago about the chair, what is really experienced? So there needs to be a continual, we need to hear continually what really does appear. Is it the reality which experiences, or the reality which is experienced? And they're very, very different.
So, as far as the moon's concerned, we only experience it by seeing it when it is there?
The moon, the concept of moon is something we think about. So it's a type of thinking. It's a story.
But
It's experience. We can say ultimately what enabled that concept is the experience of visual object. When there is seeing, there is the
Yes.
experience of, then we think about the stars or the moon or whatever. So it's just a story, essentially, of a non-reality. The moon is a non-reality.
Right.
The moon's not real. Conventionally, yes, that's true. It's a moon. It's the moon. It's the language we use in English, and they use other words in other languages.
Sure.
But no matter what word that they use in those other languages, there has to be a reality which underpins that to enable them to come up with the concept of moon or whatever.
So what he's saying is that there is seeing and visible, the experience of visible object. And if it wasn't that, there wouldn't be the idea of the moon. So the reality at that moment is seeing and experiencing visible object, and thinking in terms of what's just been seen, the story. But instead of moon, we can take the example of mango. You can say, that's a mango. I see a mango. Or you can touch and say, I touch a mango. Or taste and taste a mango, smell a mango. But in reality, it's just, when seeing is just experiencing visible object. And when tasting is just experiencing taste. And touching, just experience the hardness, softness, heat, cold. And smelling is just experience the smell. These are the realities. And so when we hear the Dhamma, we know that it's in the nature of reality to rise and fall away instantly. So that actually defines what's real and what's not. So if you get the impression that what is being experienced, like when you say, I'm touching a chair, you're not talking about something that is actually arising and falling away immediately, right? You have something out there that you can reach out and touch. So that's what can give an indication to you that what you're pointing out is a reality or just an idea. Because ideas give the impression of lasting. Because it's an idea. You can keep thinking about a chair and it's still there, right? But the actual visible object has gone, right? So the reality, what is real is defined by that which arises and falls away completely. The visible object, the seeing rises and falls away, also is the visible object. What's seen is a new one all the time. So that defines the reality. So if you are thinking you're seeing the same chair, then you're not talking about the reality. You're talking about a concept, which is not real. Because in fact, realities must rise only to fall away immediately.
So what is seen? What is seen?
The visual input at that moment.
No, what is seen? That's thinking. What you're saying is thinking. What is seen?
Seeing is the experience of that which can be seen. Basically.
That's a fair answer. Yeah. Beginning.
You can answer another way too. Okay.
Can answer it another way, she said.
To be more precise, because you said visible object is that which can be seen.
Ah, so then it's the experience of
It's what is seen.
what is seen
Yeah.
at that time, I guess.
Visible object is that is which is seen.
Which is seen.
And you can answer another way too.
Seeing is what arises when the conditions for seeing are set up.
Now we are talking about that which is seen, not the seeing.
Not the seeing itself, that which is seen. That which is seen is what is the experience of seeing?
It's the object of seeing. Because seeing experiences it, right?
Oh, it's the object
Of seeing.
of the seeing experience.
And you can answer another way too.
That which is seen.
One and more. What more?
I mean, to give you a hint, for example, you don't say, when asked what's heard, you don't say that which is heard, but you say sound. So similarly, what do you say for that which is seen?
Sight. What is seen?
Actually, I'm not 100% sure about Achan's question, but I would answer visible object.
Visible object, what is? Yeah.
You can answer another way too, or more than
No, I
that.
don't.
It's lunchtime, by the way. She's organised all the food, it's lunchtime.
So we wait for the answer.